Hello, everybody, and welcome back to The Lazy Actor, the podcast that goes through the great acting books in history, finds out what is useful, what is practical, and has some fun stories along the way. Because you're too busy. You're too busy making memes about Will Smith to read these books. So we are here doing all the work for you, you lazy bastards. With me today is 6 decades of acting experience. A decade for every hair on his head. Boom.
You're ancient, man. You're ancient.
Yeah, every hair on my eyebrow.
The mighty Phillip Williams. Phillip, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm very good. Thank you.
And I want to say a big hello, as always, to producer Tim from RadioRadio.com. How are you, Tim?
Excellent. I'm fantastic, and I'm so happy to have Phil here. I've known Phil since I was trying to figure it out the other day.
At least four decades.
1987, I think I met you.
Yeah, it was in there, eh?
Yeah.
Because, the kids were pretty small. But we all fit in the booth together. That was the bonus.
That's right. That's
well,
right.
I think in the 80s, everybody wanted to be in the booth together, right?
Is that the 70s?
Maybe the 70s, yeah.
Well, speaking of the 70s and 80s, that's really,
Oh,
Phillip,
what a nice segue that was.
Thank you.
Smooth.
I pride myself on my professional podcasting abilities.
Yvonne, let me just say how I met Phil very quickly.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'll hand it back over to you. So back in the late 80s, I had a
You
comedy.
were all in one booth.
We are all in one booth, and I had a comedy service for radio. And I went into Now Magazine. This is back before the internet. And I put an ad in there looking for talented voices that can do impressions and blah, blah, blah. And Phil answered the ad. And when we got together, he just absolutely blew me away, all the different voices he did. And obviously that's why he's been so in demand with animated characters and commercials and what have you.
Lucky.
And luck only gets you so far. And Phil did so many incredible voices, and we still listen to those old comedy pieces just for shits and giggles all these years later.
Absolutely.
So that's how I met Phil. And ever since then, I can recognize his voice on the radio when he's still doing radio commercials out there that just pop up out of nowhere.
And you know what? This is actually one of the reasons I'm really excited to have Phil in the room. We were talking about it before we started recording, was because, Tim, you have a lot of experience as a voice actor. If you can't recognize Tim's voice, he is the introduction to the podcast. And Phillip, I mean, there are so many shows that I watched as a child that you were in. And I think that's I'm really excited to get your perspective, because so far, a lot of the actors we've had as guests so far on the podcast have been actors for film and television and for theater.
Right.
But we have had very few who have a great deal of experience in the voice world. And I'm very excited to explore that. And in fact, I have a little challenge for both of you later, so that the audience can see your amazing voice abilities.
Wow. You get me the day after. Let me take a lozenge right now.
Take a
Fisherman's friend.
Get your fisherman's friends ready.
I recorded yesterday, and I usually tear my throat apart during a session.
Well, you know what's funny? I'll tell you this one little anecdote, and then we'll jump into the actual chapters of Audition by Michael Shurtleff, because I forgot to remember, for anyone who's here for the first time, we are slowly going through the first acting book I ever read, Audition by Michael Shurtleff. And it's
that's one person I know that's read the book. Good for you.
Thank you. And I'll probably still be the only one, because everyone who's listening to this podcast is doing it so they don't have to read the book. We're like the Coles Notes.
Because they're lazy.
Load up. Everything adds up.
Mm-hmm.
So the first real voice gig I ever had was for a video game. Okay. And I did this recorded audition, and I sent it off to them. They think it was great. Then they wanted to do a live audition, but and this is before COVID. They wanted to do it live, but on Zoom. And I get there, and we do a few back and forths. It's like, Yvonne, this is great, but we want you to really let go. We don't want you to pretend to scream. We want you to scream at the top of your lungs. And the lines were something along the lines like, I'm going to kill all you motherfuckers. I'm going to give all you motherfuckers. How about 5 live grenades? Like all this very violent stuff. I was in a hotel room in Milwaukee at the time. and I tell the guys, and it's like, and And I tell him, like, listen, I'm in a hotel room. So during the audition, I was like, hold on 1 minute. And they're all live. We're all live. I called reception, like, hey, listen, just so
This is
you
what's,
know,
yeah.
there's going to be some very terrorist kind of sounding stuff here. And luckily they had the security guard come up to my room just in case anyone popped their heads out. And then, man, I couldn't speak for like 2 days afterward because I was like,
Oh, yeah. Well, I tell because I taught voice for cartooning and radio at one point in time as well. My first advice was, do not do a voice at an audition that you can't do for 4 hours.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I told my agent, I said, what's the cartoon? Oh, it's this and that. It's an army thing and everybody's blowing up and screaming. I said, no, I'm not reading.
Yeah.
You know,
be too much on the
I want that for down the road. And I have a rough enough time with it now because of, well, aging, number one, but reflux as well, which I've had for, I can't tell you how many years, that I discovered I had while doing a cartoon. Showed up to do a Christmas album and I sounded like Barry White. And that was all I could do. I could sound like, you know, it was crazy.
Let's make sure we put that into the list of things they don't teach you in acting school.
Oh,
worry about your acid reflux, because those practicalities of the day-to-day actor are things that we like to discuss on the podcast because they're things that you don't learn in acting schools. In acting school, and you know, especially in the book as well, it's all about that leading performance, all the things that, you know, that you do when you're the star of the play, the star of the show. But these tiny little logistics of the working day-to-day actor are things we don't consider.
That's it. How many people are the star of the show?
Mm-hmm.
You know, how many people have, you know, what had become known at the time as, leading man or leading lady looks. Now, granted, that's changed an awful lot, right?
You know what's funny? We're going to talk about looks.
Okay.
It's in the section of the book where it's because Michael Shurtleff discusses it.
Oh yeah, when he talks about, I'm not hiring someone ugly to lead my show.
Yeah.
So,
well, before we get into that, let's get into this. One of my criticisms of this book was it's a very short book, but it could have been way shorter. And I think that he just added things for the sake of adding them. And there's at this point in the book, we're getting to a lot of repetition. But I don't know how to feel about this chapter. This is chapter 10 called Simplicity, and it's literally 1 page. And all it says is this: the actor's process is the distillation of complexities. The simplest choices are the most telling. When you put it all together, find simplicity. And for me, I mean, like, that's really great actorese, but it doesn't help me in any way whatsoever. Yeah. How did you interpret that one, Phil?
You know, it's like, make a choice. They don't want to see you. They don't want to see the work that went into whatever decision you made about presenting your audition. Make the choice and let that choice be the guide throughout. It'll layer itself. You know, the guy does this. Well, he does that for a whole lot of reasons. Those reasons will come through as you're presenting it. You know, I choose to present it as this is what he's like. And then it rings true. You've committed yourself to doing it like that, as opposed to, now I got to add some salt, and now I got to add a little this depth of flavor, as a chef would do. Make a decision and you know, stick by it. Commit yourself.
And that's a really great way to think about simplicity, is make a strong choice and just stick through it throughout the whole scene or throughout the whole audition, because that'll serve you better than trying to have like, now, like, you know, when we have these adjectives for subtext, okay, in this line, I'm going to be this, in this line, I'm going to be this, in this line, I'm going to be this. Doing that is just going to hurt you because you're so committed to like trying to have changes. You're not being sincere.
No, so and you're going to change your mode, or you have to remember what you're doing from, you know, you've prepared, you know, hopefully you're off book for your audition. Number one, if you're not off book and you're sitting here doing this, unless they say, oh, we'd like you to try reading something else. If they want to see something else, they'll ask. If they've seen you and you've interested to them, okay, that's pretty good. What I'd like you to try, and as soon as you do that, you know they're directing you. So now you have someone in your corner that's actually working with you.
You know what's lovely about it's Phillip, it's funny you're bringing these things up, and they're literally the things I had in my notes to talk about for this section. So let's jump, which I love because he's already in that mentality.
Stop jumping ahead, Phil.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I should have read that chapter.
I will tell you all something though. When we talk about simplicity, and Phillip, when you talk about just making a strong choice, I want to give you a very random example of a strong choice. And this is something from a different podcast I was listening to, where the guest was, and I'm trying to remember her name. Maybe, Tim, if you can look this up. The Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, Jodie Foster.
No, not Jodie Foster. She was the girl who was kidnapped, and she was in the hole.
She's the
with
one
the
in
puppy.
the well with the dog. Okay.
Brooke Smith. Brooke Smith. That's her name.
Okay.
Brooke Smith.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Ted Levine was the amazing actor who played Buffalo Bill.
Right, right.
And she said she managed to watch his audition, and she was like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And she talked to Ted about it, and she said, what choice did you make to have that kind of delivery?
Yeah.
And he said, I walked into the audition and I just decided that I really wanted a cup of coffee.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's out there. But that was like, and she's like, and he's like, that was it. I just played every line like I wanted a cup of coffee. And that was his simple decision that he did throughout his audition. Go ahead, Phil. Yeah.
Rarely will you ever get an actor, though, to, man, what were you working on when you did that role? Very rarely will anybody ever say, well, this is all I was thinking about. They're not going to let you in on it because it has nothing to do with what you actually see, right? You could be a million miles away here, but what you see is where this is at the time.
Phil, can you give us an example? Like something from your own life that you've done that.
It's like way back in doing a class, there was a girl that got up to do a piece from a comedy. But where she went was such a difficult time that she started crying and sobbing and walking back and forth. But the lines were coming out from the show, which were lines that were funny. And to see it happening while someone was in this state made it funnier. But we're not empathetic to what she's going through. We just see what's happening here. We have no idea why she's crying.
And what's very interesting that you bring up is when we go right into the next chapter, observations from a life in the theater. The chapter starts with what I look for in an actor. And this is Michael Shurtleff's words. He says, in my capacity as a casting director, I'm frequently asked, what is the outstanding trait I'd look for in the actor? My answer is humor.
Absolutely. Always my first choice.
So So when you're going to an audition, you're like, how can I make this funny? It doesn't have to be funny, but how can I add humor to it? Can you delve into that a little more for me?
Not how I can make it funny, but what do I possibly find humorous in the role? Because humor is something that we use to exist, to get through things that are so harsh. If you didn't have a sense of humor, the hard things will kill you. You have to be able to look at and take things with a grain of salt. We all suffer, but how do you come out of it? You have to find some help somewhere, but the humor in situations that, what do they say? Things are always darkest before they turn pitch black.
Okay.
Right.
So as an actor, I'm trying to think of because I'm trying to think of moments where this concept, I'll be honest with you, I don't go to humor when
Okay.
I'm doing, and but maybe I'm trying to delve into like auditions. I'm thinking about auditions, especially small ones when I only have like, you're a day player, you have like 3 lines,
Yeah.
and how could we add humor to those moments? And I just thought of one example. It's a part I did, and my line was, I was a bartender, and it was, what can I get you ladies? Coming right up. It was, what can I get you ladies? They say some drinks, and I say coming right up. And that was the whole thing. You never see me again for the rest of the show.
Right.
Very. If you live in Canada or if you live in Georgia, it's what I call a tax credit part, because they wrote that in so they can get their quota of like local actors for their tax credit.
Fill the permits.
And I guess I did it without even thinking about it, but I decided to come to the decision there where I was just going to find one of the girls really attractive, but she rejected my glance. And that was where, and I thought that, because that's always kind of funny when you kind of look at someone and you're like, well, all right, never mind then. I guess I'll just go fuck myself. And then you walk away. So I put that little thing in because I thought it might be kind of fun. And maybe that was the reason I got the part. Who knows?
Okay. You just brought to mind. Now, I didn't audition. I didn't do it at the audition, but I did it on camera. I did a scene. It wasn't a huge part, but I did a small thing in Good Will Hunting.
Wow.
That I played the head custodian of the school where Will was going to school. And Stellan Skarsgård is the math professor who sees this brilliant thing solved by the caretaker. So he's looking for the caretaker. So he comes to my boiler room
I remember that scene. Yeah.
Okay. So I had a guy sitting with me who was a background performer who had been in a number of things that I had done. And then Stellan Skarsgård shows up and we have this little thing. And the scene, the way it was written, it wasn't working. He would say something and what I had written made absolutely no sense to continuing the scene. It was just bizarre. So I went to Stellan and I said, not tooting, I didn't say anything. Gus Van Sant was directing. And I said, look, Stellan, are you finding what I'm finding? He says, yeah. I said, but if you give me your line and I say this, and then you say this, and then I say this, does it make sense? He goes, yeah. He says, let's keep that. And then at the same time, I'm thinking, I got my little buddy here. So I'm going to get him into the scene. Didn't say a thing to Gus, nothing. So he goes, Stellan shows up in the scene and his assistant prof says, I turn around, I said, yeah, can I help you? He says, yeah, this is Professor so-and-so. And I said, oh, and this is Professor Henry. I said, to the background player. And he has no idea I'm going to mention him. And he kind of starts chuckling. And we're still rolling. And he goes, oh, what I'm looking for. And the scene continued. And then he goes, okay. And then he exits. And I turned to him and I said, I just go, what an asshole. Like that. We buttoned the scene and they kept everything. So we basically improv that one little section. So we found the humor. I found the humor at the time with my little crony here.
Yeah.
And Gus kept everything. And it's ambiance.
So, Michael Shurtleff said, if an actor has true humor, he makes judgments and distinctions that are uniquely his. And I think that's a really good example. That was that inner humor that helped to create something magical in the scene. Michael, he goes on to say, the use of humor in relationships is likely to express a greater sense of and enjoyment of competition, which he talked about in a different chapter. Right. So having humor, I think about it like this. Phillip, you brought it up. Humor is when an awkward situation happens, we always go to humor to try and de-stress and reduce the stress and the tension in that conversation. You know what I mean? That's why I always think of using humor, and not as an actor, but as in my day-to-day life.
Yeah.
And I never thought about applying that to a scene, like in a conflict scene, trying to throw humor into conflict.
Oh, yeah.
I love that.
I get people now, during the pandemic, we're all walking around with masks on, right? So, of course, I would say something if someone was somewhere without a mask on. And they'd get really pissed. And look at, okay, you want to go outside? I said, why would I want to go outside? I said, what's going to happen? I say, you're going to beat up a 68-year-old cancer patient. Are you going to brag to your friends about that? Or let's look at it this way. Let's say I kick your ass and your friends ask you what happened. You're not going to say I got beat up by a 68-year-old cancer patient, right? So, and he goes, oh, okay, well, fuck you. Just fuck you, I said, okay, just carry on. Next time, buy a mask, you muck. So,
well, let's bring that back in, and Matt. So let's pretend. I'm going to read a credit, one of Phillip's credits, and he's got so many to choose. I always judge the success of an actor's career by how many times I have to make the scroll motion on my tablet. So boom, lots of scrolls here. So here I'm going to pick one at random here, and let's see if we can apply it, or if you can think of. I'm going to give you two choices and see if either one of those you can bring up something in which you remember. Little Mosque on the Prairie. Little Mosque.
Oh, yes. Was Little Mosque on the Prairie.
Lots of scenes where they're trying to attack cultural issues, uncomfortable cultural issues with comedy. Anything that stood out from you where they had a really good use of humor? Because you were there for several episodes. You were, I would say, a recurring character on that show.
All the scenes I had were not with a lot of the, like they were kind of, I wasn't involved with a lot of stuff that had to deal with the culturalism itself.
Mm-hmm.
I had Boyd Banks in jail. I had, so-and-so at a wedding. I had the curling this. And so the stuff I had didn't have much to do with the culturalism, but I know how it worked. They weren't mucking the religions as much as comparing the religions. It wasn't like you had to be apologetic. I think that would be a good question if you ever had Neil Crone on the show.
Put us in contact and we'll put him on.
Because I will. He'll come down. He lives up north of Gravenhurst, but he was the one that played the radio guy that was like against that section of the community. He'd be able to probably fill you in like huge with that kind of thing.
Well, then, you know what? Let's use this opportunity to jump into the next section where he talks about overacting.
Oversnapping.
I will tell you this.
Scenery.
I will tell you this. He says that there's no such thing as overacting. I strongly disagree. However, he goes on to kind of explain that a little bit. So here's the first thing he says. And actually this I think is true. But in shows like, for example, like Little Mosque or Kim's Convenience, a lot of these kind of like easy comedy Canadian shows, I think this does apply a little bit. He says, most actors are afraid of overacting and as a result give very boring performances.
Yeah.
Because in our attempt to be realistic, we come across bland.
It depends on the writing, what you're talking about, what you're doing, what you've chosen for the role. I mean, obviously the roles doesn't say boring guy.
And even if it did, you would have to find some way to make boring guy exceptionally boring.
Go the absolute opposite way.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole thing. When you're looking for something, look for the dichotomy of it. Look the opposite. That's why look at the humor. The guy's boring. Look where the excitement part comes from. How can you be an excited, boring guy? Well, you can. It would have to do with what the boredom is being talked about. Like you could talk, hey, and then I did this, and then I did that, and and the people are going, Is that not, that's boring, but it's not like, oh, the other day I did, so it's the idea. What is boring to some people and what is, to other people?
Well, Michael,
how do you make it alive?
So here's how he justifies it. And I think this is relating to exactly what you're saying. He says, my contention is that there is no such thing as overacting, that one can employ any extravagance of feeling or expression as long as there is relationship in it. Sorry, hold on. Any extravagance of feeling or expression as long as there is relationship in it. What we term overacting is done by people who are acting by themselves, narcissistically setting up a storm in which no one else exists. Well, let's explore that a little bit, because here's the thing, Philip. Suppose you're in the sound room, and I mean, I'm going to give an example here. I own issue number 1 of Wildcats, which I don't know if you remember. You know that you made the animated TV show. So
that one. Okay, not the Wild. Okay, I did a Disney movie.
No, this one.
Too.
So Wildcats was it was like an old school Image comic that they were like another version of the X-Men.
Fighter pilots, right?
Covert action teams. They were the covert action teams.
All right.
Wild C.A.T.S.
Okay.
Now, you can come in, and what I've noticed in not every case, but in a lot of like voice work for animation and for video games, it's a little bigger. It's a little bit bigger. Now, here is an example of the trap of overacting. If you come into the room with big, wild choices that have nothing to do with what you're seeing or feeling or the terms of the scene, that is overacting. Sure. What Michael Shurtleff is saying is you can be as crazy as you want, as long as it makes sense with what is happening in the scene.
Okay, here's an example.
Yeah, give me an example.
Pet Detective.
Pet Detective, okay.
You look at Jim Carrey. Is Jim Carrey overacting?
Hugely.
He is so committed to what he is doing, and the belief is there to what he's doing. It's a stylistic thing, but you buy into it.
Hugely.
No one goes, oh my God, look at him do that. It's like,
hard to watch.
Oh my God, look what he's getting away with. Not what is he doing, but what he's put in front of us that we're eating up. And that comes from total commitment on his part.
And that's the reason why he can go so big and over the top, but it still makes sense, because it's not a choice that he's coming in and just saying, I'm going to do this no matter what. It is affecting the people around him, and he's feeding off how that is affecting them. Sure. And that's how you get away with it.
And he's feeling it too.
Mm-hmm.
He's getting into what he's doing because this is what he wants out of this character or out of this scene. So this is the way this guy is.
So for our listening audience, then, we have to prepare them, okay? Philip, I want to come in and I'm doing an audition, okay? I'm going to audition for like, I don't know, like some new video game or something, right? I want to make a big, strong character, because in video games, even in smaller parts, you usually have some nice characters that they want to develop. How can I use this principle? I want to come in with a big, strong choice, something really big. How can I use it so I come across as being really committed versus come across as like that was hard to watch because it was so forced?
Well, you have to believe everything you're saying. You don't make a choice that I'm going to be big for big's sake.
There it is. Yeah.
How am I going to be big and present this guy while I'm big? So you're vested in your choice. So I'm going to huff and I'm going to puff and I'm going to blow your house now. It's like,
no, that was great.
You don't believe it that you're going to do it. Why go that route?
I love what you're saying, because I think the idea is if you can commit to the choice, which we talked about, of that simplicity of a strong choice, and you say that choice makes sense in the scene, in what I'm doing, in the reality I have in my head, then you can go big. If you say, I'm going to scream, why? Because I think it'll be really dramatic. That's not a choice.
No, that's
if you say, I'm I'm going to thank you. It's a result, not a choice. And I think a lot of actors fall into that trap of like, I'm acting to do the results versus it's
yeah,
good.
you don't work, that's where a director makes their money. They don't, no one says, be happy. In this scene, I want you to be happy. Well, what the fuck is that? Tell me when you're doing this scene that you've just won Lotto Max, but you don't want to tell anybody. So now you've been planted with something. So now the inner workings are, you're talking to your friend and it's like, hey, you want to go to the bar tonight? Oh yeah, I want to go to the bar tonight. All right. And you know what? I'm going to pick up the tab. You're going to pick up the tab. Oh yeah. But you're not going to tell them you won the lottery. You're trying to, but you're not going to tell them. And you've been given something to work with, rather than, oh yeah, let's go to the bar tonight. Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Be happy. What the hell is that?
And that underlining choice is something that might never ever come up. No one will ever know.
That's why I love directors that say something that means something to me. Some directors say something and I go, I still don't know what you're heading for. Let's get together on this, because saying something to somebody that doesn't understand it, obviously you have to, there's two separate languages going on. Oh no, I don't see what you mean. What if we did this? Okay, let's try that. That's an idea. And now we're on the same page again.
And you know what? I would love, if you can think of a time that happened, that would be amazing, because I have an example of that where, a director gave me a very simple direction because the scene wasn't working. It was for a pilot that never got aired.
Okay.
And the scene wasn't working. And so because I was playing shy, and the director came in and it's like, listen, it's not really functioning well. And then in the course of the conversation, what we kind of decided was like, we were trying to explore, why are you shy? And I was saying I'm shy because I can't remember, it was like 10 years ago. But as a result of the choices we made, without even thinking about it, it was in a car and I just started hiding underneath the steering wheel, even though I could see everyone through the steering wheel. And I did all my dialogue hiding behind a steering wheel. And that looked, if I would have just said, I'm going to hide behind the steering wheel, that wouldn't have worked. It's too weird. But we had justified it in terms of the emotional stakes.
Yeah.
And then it played well because I ended up committing to that choice, not because I wanted that result of like, I'm going to be weird. It's more like the emotion is making me do the weird thing.
Yeah, sure. That's the choice that you decided to go on.
And I think another really great example is anything Nicolas Cage has done in his whole career. Huge overactor. But everything makes sense.
That I want your face on my face. He's just...
That was a great Jack Nicholson, by the way. That was a great Jack Nicholson.
He's a little... But Nicky, yeah, no, that's another part of commitment. Like it or you don't. That's what it comes down to.
So I'm going to skip this little section that he talks about interviewing, because he says because this is something that I don't know if you have any experience with. So in the book, he mentions that sometimes instead of an audition or before the audition, people like to interview the actor. This might be something more in theater, because he says it's more and more of a thing, but this book was written in the 70s.
Yeah.
I think once in my, I guess, almost 20 years of acting, I've had an interview before an audition.
An interview, no.
Or
I had an interview for a commercial, if you can believe that.
Really?
Like a long time ago, and I wasn't even on camera. All right. Some bigwig director was in town shooting a commercial from a financial institution. And there's a voice that goes on off camera that's not kept in the final cut of the commercial. You don't hear it happening, I think, because they're going to super the words underneath.
Okay.
And then they shoot. And I got a call from the casting director who called me and said, do you want to do a Bank of whatever commercial off camera? They're looking for someone to do voice off camera. And I said, yeah, all right. He said, but you have to come in and interview. It's this director, I won't name, don't even know if he's alive still, but he just wants to interview people to see. He said, I don't know why. I said, God, so I got to come downtown and park and come in and talk to some guy about doing a voice that you're never going to hear, that's only being utilized for the use of the actors that are on camera. And he goes, yeah. I said, okay. So I went down. Now I get my collar up, okay? Because I hate crap like that. It makes me angry.
Okay.
Why someone would even want to do that, right? So I go down there and he goes, okay, Phil, so I go in and this guy's sitting at the table and I sit across from him and he goes, I'm so-and-so. And I said, yeah. I said, I'm Phil. He says, so Phil, what do you do? I said, I drink beer, I stay up late, and I play poker. And I smiled at him. He goes, oh, okay. He says, all right. I said, can I go now? He says, yeah. I said, okay, thank you. And I walked out and I was doing a sign sheet or something and Ross had gone in. And then Ross came out and said, Phil, hang on a second. He says, so-and-so likes you. He wants to know if you want to do the job. I said, yeah, sure. But I got along famously on set with him. He was into jazz. He was into red wines. And I hung out and did this thing. And I didn't ask him about the interview at all. Basically, I guess, who knows what he was looking for? No idea whether someone was going to be intimidated or whatever. No idea.
But I really, that's a great story, by the way. And I'm going to push back on you a little bit, Philip, but also compliment you at the same time. Okay. So here, yeah, Philip's face for everyone who's watching, Philip's face is one like, oh God.
He's fired again.
No, because here's the thing. Michael Shurtleff, and this is very serendipitous, talks about two things, luck and persistence.
Right.
And one of the things he says is there's no such thing as luck. You can be prepared, so when situations arise, you attack them. But the persistence is something that will really separate the successful actor from the actor who never gets any kind of a career. Because here's what he talks about. It's very easy to get bitter about having to come in to do auditions that you think aren't going to be worth your time. That you came in with that energy. However, it served you. Yeah. And even though you're like, I can't believe I'm spending all this money to do this stupid thing, but it got you a job.
Well, it wasn't the audition per se. It was the audition for what it was for.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have any qualms about going down to do readings or, if I'm, an up-tempo, a ballad and a drama piece for the teacher, right? The director, like the old days. But to go in it was like, why didn't they just get someone to do it? That was my thinking. Why? Yeah. What are you looking for specifically for that? That has nothing to do with the finished product. That's what I was kind of taken aback with.
And the props to you, because here's the thing. I have been in these situations too, where I have these, I'm like, why are we doing this? This is a lot of work for no real reason, but I still show up. And just like you did, you still show up because that is one of the things that's going to really separate like an actor in terms of persistence, right?
Yeah.
Like you always have to show up, and you always have to show up and be present and be willing to do something that's going to have an impact on the person as well, which is what you did. So the beautiful part is, and this is something that all actors should take away, because here's what Michael Shurtleff says: whether or not you get the job cannot whether or not you get the job cannot be the criterion, but only the security of knowing that you have auditioned well.
Right.
Remember,
Yeah.
you
Go ahead.
you can audition better than anyone else for a given role, but still not get the part. Maybe you're too tall, you're too short, you're too slim, you're too wide, you're too handsome, you're too ugly, you're too young, or you're too old. And I think that's what I take from that story is that no matter what is going on, you're always showing up with something. You're always showing up, and then you're leaving. When you're done, you can't walk away with any of that energy. You did it, and you were gone.
I'm done. It's like I know people, a lot of friends of mine go in and they audition, and then it's like, now it's time to sit by the phone and wait. I read 2 days ago. I haven't heard anything. I'm saying, so what are you worried about? What are you waiting for? My criteria is, I've prepared my audition. I've made my choices. I'm going to do this. If I go into the audition and I fulfill everything I've wanted to do, whether it's right or wrong, I'm happy. I walk out saying, I just kicked ass because that's what I wanted to do. Is it going to get me the role? Hell, who knows? I have no idea. And I leave. And I never say, and then my agent will call a week and a half later saying, oh, you got a booking. And I'm going, like, for what? And they'll tell me, and they'll go, oh, yeah. Okay, cool. Good.
I do that all the time. And to all our listeners, your ability to be able to leave something behind or not take it personally is what's going to give you longevity. I mean, Phillip's been in the industry for 6 decades almost. Tim's been in the industry for 5.5 decades, although he looks like he's been for 80. But that's the reason you need to have persistence. In the face of constant rejection, you got to let it go. Just the other day, a friend of mine who helped me read for a commercial, and this is the thing that people who aren't actors don't realize, that sometimes this can be a little not, like, hey, I just saw that commercial you auditioned for that you didn't get. And it's like, thank you. Yeah. Oh, thanks so much. That's great.
We do that between each other in the voice when I see, because, we audition so often with the same crews that show up to audition, right? So I've got guys that will come up to me, we shoot the crap at the audition. And no way our reading's going to be similar at all. We base what we're giving on what they're asking for, what the director is saying, our interpretation, and then we lay it down and whatever. So we've got it into this thing where he'll call me and he'll say, oh, by the way, did you get that Toyota spot? And I'll go, no, I didn't get that. He goes, oh, yeah, because I got it. And I'll go, oh,
what
okay.
Sure.
So I'll do the same thing. I'll say, oh, by the way, did you get that McDonald's spot? No. Oh, yeah, that's right. I got it. I'm recording it on Thursday. And it's that kind of thing, I think we don't care. If someone's working, that's a great thing. And if it happens to be someone that even better.
And that's something that is touched on in this book here when he talks about the discipline of being an actor, is that ability to let go and just keep training and moving forward in the moment. And even when you do have a part, not saying, okay, I got it, working and working and working. Yeah. And that's the hard part, because it is he says, a lot of the times he sees actors that have talent but don't work at it, and they don't make it.
And then there's the people that do one thing, and then, like, we don't have the quote star system here, although I guess it's coming along in certain aspects. But
we have lots of stars. They just live in LA.
Yeah. Well, to rely on work that you've done to get you your next thing, you still have to prep the next piece. It's always with, God, I've done this and this and this and this. No one's offered me anything. Well,
nobody will.
No one's offered you anything. Well, when an audition comes along, make sure you're prepared for that one. That's all I got to say.
Actually, that's essentially, you just boil down when Michael Shurtleff talks about luck. He says there's no such thing as luck. What there is always be prepared for when an opportunity arises. Always keeping your muscle sharp. So even if it's a month gone by, like this is a production of The Actor's Place, and what we do is twice a week we have actor gyms where we're not teaching class. We're just showing up and practicing, rehearsing, running scenes to keep that muscle fresh. So when an audition does come up, even if you haven't had an audition in 2 months, you feel like you can jump right into it.
Yeah. What do they say? Preparation meets opportunity.
That's what luck is, my friend.
Yeah.
Now, the last part he talks about here is about taking risks. And I'm going to read you something about risks. And then we're going to do a little, Philip, jump in right after this. I'm going to read you something that he says about risk. But then we're going to apply it in the moment. Because we got a few more minutes left. And what I want to do is I want to jump in and I want us to try and use some of his advice for a character performance. But Phil, I know. You're right. That's right. It's going to be terrible. It's going to be brutal. But this is the actors taking risks, my friends.
I haven't had an audition for 2 months.
Well, congratulations, because you're about to exercise your auditioning muscle, my friend.
I forget how to act. I don't act anymore. I'm retired.
So this whole section about taking risks is essentially an anecdote about Barbra Streisand.
Yes.
How Barbra Streisand walked into the audition room with a crazy character, pretended it's the big famous, she pretended to have bubble gum. So halfway through her song, she's like, hold on a minute. And she takes the bubble gum, puts it underneath the stool, never had any bubble gum in her mouth. She just did it as a character choice. And because she wanted to play this crazy, weird kind of character. Taking big risks in an audition is always advisable. That's what Michael Shurtleff says, with the qualifier of as long as it makes sense and it doesn't put anyone in danger.
Absolutely, yeah.
Don't come into the audition with a real knife, for example. Don't come into the audition and I have a great story. He's going to be a guest of mine. Ken Lucky's going to tell you about his roommate who came in and did cocaine in front of the casting directors and then spit in the casting director's face. And he was like, man, that was great. I was so, like, real story. To be continued, though. So first of all, Phillip, I want your mentality about taking risks, and then we're going to see it in action. So what's your opinion about taking risks in the audition, in the performance?
It depends on what it is. I mean, back when I was younger, I was asked to play a drunk for something. And I did grab the director. But I grabbed him. I didn't grab him to hurt him. You know, I knew what I was doing. It was all in the as you know, the dialogue was going along. This is where it went to, and I kind of grabbed him by his suit like this, and I let him go right away. I could see him tense, and I let him go and continued whatever. And I did get the gig, but would I do that today? I don't know. That was, you know, at the moment.
It was the summer of 1964.
Oh, I've done stuff like I do some really off.
Tell us about some weird stuff. I'll go ahead.
I went in. I don't have here's a piece of paper. I had a script. I had worked with a director once before on a film, and I went to. It was my birthday. I took my kids to Ontario Place, and I had an audition that I had to leave Ontario Place early and take my family to this audition and do this reading. And there was a really well-known casting agent and the director in the room. So I went in and I had my resume picture, and I had what they thought was the script I was reading. And I went in and I stood in front of the camera and I just went, I looked at the page and I looked at the director, and I'm going,
so this is great audio.
I don't,
no. This is, let me.
I'm not saying a word. I'm
I
thinking, you fucking want me to read this? Are you fucking out of your mind? This is what's going through my head. And I'm going like, come on.
And I'm going to encourage everyone.
The casting agent is freaking. They're sitting there going like this and looking at him, and he's sitting there like chuckling. She has no idea he knows me. And I'm going, come on. And then she said, could you slate? And I said, sure. And I put my picture in front of my face. And I said, hi, I'm Phil Williams, and I'm with Butler, Rustin Bell. That was my slate. And he said, okay, get out of here. And I left. I got the gig.
So I'm gonna encourage everyone to make sure to check out the YouTube channel so you can see the video of what Phil was doing the whole time, because that was brilliant. It was very fun, and it was honestly, that's the kind of thing that, as our viewers, think of it as the exception, not the rule. to going crazy.
And I got this thing too, that you're doing a scene and you've got a reader. And it's a neat scene. There's some great writing, and you're going back and forth, and you come to the end of the scene, and everybody's caught up, and it's the end of the scene, and you're left hanging there, and there's all quiet, and I turn to the camera and I do this. I go, and scene. And they go, oh yeah, sorry, man. It's like it's over. It's like I could ad lib more. We can make the scene longer if you'd like to. No, sorry, And I do it all the time. If they're sitting there, I have to end it. I'm thinking, okay, and scene. Oh yeah, sorry. I said, okay, no problem.
I think that idea of having that having some little moments and buttons is a great one. What I want to take from what Phillip said is, in the audition, in the rehearsal, or even once you get a part, it's okay to make choices that make sense either for the character or the type of character you want to bring to that part. For example, examples of taking risks was what Phillip did. There's some beautiful physical risks you took. There's some emotional risks you took. There was some fun back and forth you took. It made me think of one of my first auditions, and I did not get this part, but I remember walking out of that audition, and the director, which has never happened to me before since, was like, hey, that was great, and shook my hand, which usually directors don't talk to you, that they've never met you. I've been an actor for a year at this point. I think it was because I was so young and it was a large part. They didn't want to give it to me. But I had the first line in the scene, and I was playing like a mafioso drug kingpin. And so what I did is I sat down in the chair, and they said action, and I counted to 20 in my head, just 20 seconds of dead silence, and I just like eyeballed Mad Dog the reader. And both the director and the reader, I remember seeing them out of the corner of my eye, were kind of looking down, like I think he was kind of looking at the resumes or something, and the reader was looking at the line, and they both just looked up and kept looking. And kept looking. And that was a huge risk I was taking, because they might have called cut. They're like, who is this person? But then finally I said my line, and you could see that both were like, the director was looking, and then the reader was like she kind of was in the zone, because she was just like, I was not like, we were total eye contact. And afterward, the guy was like, wow, that was something. Let's do that again a little quicker, but wow. And that was a risk I took. What you said, Phil? They asked me to change it afterward, but because I made a simple choice that made sense for the scene, that this drug kingpin loves the fear when people fear him, I said, this is how I'm going to make my reader fear me. And that simple choice created a character which had an impact, and it was a lot of risk, but it paid off because I came out of there feeling amazing, and I did a great audition.
Yeah, and you felt like, you've done your job.
So now
you're not whatever.
So now let's take that same concept and put our producer Tim and our guest Phillip to the test to see what kind of risks they can take with the following voice part.
A voice part
for my two voice actors.
Is it a cartoon or is it?
This is a cartoon, and you are playing a meteorologist. Ooh, magic tricks. Now here's a funny thing. That little magic trick, I can see is helping to put Phillip into a certain energy. So he's ready to take it to the next level. And that's one of the ways he's putting his character in.
I used the magic trick in an audition once. I put that in.
Bravo.
And I dropped the coin and I said, wait, can we roll that again? I got to get this trick down.
So
it had to do with the character. It had to do with who I was reading for.
And it made sense. It was a risk, but it made sense again.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
there was a relationship to it.
So this is a meteorologist.
You're playing a meteorologist, okay? So here's the line. The line is feels like 39. Wind at 13 miles per hour. Humidity is 51%. Feels like 39. Wind.
Wait, can I write that down?
Yeah. Feels like 39.
Is that centigrade or Fahrenheit?
Whatever you want.
Okay.
Winds at 13. Humidity at 51%.
It was like 39. Winds at
13.
13.
Humidity at 51%. Now, I'm going to read you a character breakdown. And we're going to do 2 takes, okay? The first take is just a normal read. Just give it to me like how you think most actors would do it. The second take, I want you to take a risk. And then after we do those 2 takes, we're going to discuss what was going on in your head. But first, let's do it normally. And I'll go first. So I'm going to do it first, just like a normal reel. Feels like 39, wind at 13 miles per hour, humidity 51%. And you know what? Let's end it with back to you, Mike. We'll end it, and then we'll end it with back to you, Mike. Back to you, Mike. So that's my standard read. Tim, give me your standard read.
Feels like 39, winds at 13, humidity at 51%. Back to you, Mike.
Phillip, standard read.
Feels like 39. Wind is at 13. Humidity is at 51%. And back to you, Mike.
So those were all good takes. Phillip did a great job, and he really took his time with it. Tim rushed through it. Not that was a bad thing, Tim. Those both gave you character choices. And when Michael Shurtleff talks about actors, trying to be so real that they're so afraid of overacting, they give these standard performances. Those were good standard performances. But now let's get the actor that gets the part. Let's be that successful actor. So let's take a big risk. And we're going to start off with Tim, because he's usually the more disappointing one. Then I'll go. So like Tim will put the bar low. I'll bring it up, and Phillip takes us over.
Do with the bar.
All right. All right. Here we go. It's acting class, everybody. And then I want to talk about what was going on through your heads when you did this. So Tim, big risk. You're doing this. It's a commercial. It's a cartoon. You're applying to be the meteorologist in this cartoon. And take it away.
Feels like 39, winds at 13, humidity 51%. Back to you, Mike.
Okay, nice. I'm going to go with one. Feels like 39, winds 13, humidity 51. Back to you, Mike.
He's got issues.
Well, I got to tell you, feels like 39 here. That's Celsius, because my underwear is clinging to my butt. The wind's only 13, so I'm not getting any help from that in cooling down. But the humidity is only 51%, which is strange because the bloody clouds are blacker than hell, and I know it's going to rain, so how can we get rain at 51% humidity? I got to go get a coat. Back to you, Mike.
And scene. And I'm going to encourage everyone to definitely check out the YouTube video so you can see the physicality that went in. Even when it's a voice audition, everyone here did some great physicality. All right. So, Tim, what was going on in your head when you delivered that scene?
Retro 70s cheesy fake helmet head hair, just a big perma smile.
Tim was playing himself. Good.
Ouch.
Bastard. So I played it that Mike just gave also, hey, by the way, after this read, you're fired. That's what I played in my head. So I'm like, and he's like, and go to meteorologist. And that's why I played it that way. So that I decided I was going to play it just like every line was like an F you to Mike. And I'm sitting there like sweating and I was like clenching my butt cheeks the whole time.
Cool.
Phillip?
Well, I didn't want to do exactly my voice. I didn't want to do a weatherman's voice, but I wanted to have a little animation into it because animation is this. If you're going to sit and listen, you don't want to listen to that. You want to, this is part of the whole shabib. Mine was what the weather was doing to me. With these kind of numbers, what the hell was going on? And then the ad-libbing, that's where you throw in where the humor comes from. What kind of humor can you find from sweating your ass off at 39 degrees? Well, my underwear was sticking to my goddamn skin. I had to pick it up. So if you were to get a picture of the whole person in the shot, well, it's 39 degrees, man. I'm dripping. My gits are sticking. It's the wind ain't helping because we got no goddamn breeze and 51%. It's pouring. I got no rain shit.
So, and then what I love about what's happening right now is that if we came into the audition with that big of a choice, and Phillip was kind of moving around, he was doing a big character. Even if it's not what they're going for, because he came in with a strong choice, that feeling like, how is the heat affecting me? That simple choice. How is that caused the big character? Even if that wasn't right, two things would happen in that casting room. Number one, the director would probably respect you for it. Like, that was great. Thank you for that strong choice. Can we try it another way? And they'd probably give you like some direction because you've made a good impression on them.
Yeah.
Number two, that director is going to be like, okay, this is an actor who knows how to act because he's coming in with strong choices. Even if they don't get the part, I'll probably call them back in. Both of those things to me are success as an actor.
Yeah.
And with that, I don't know what better way to wrap it all up than making strong choices, not being afraid, and make your song choices based on simple things that make sense for you, your character, and the scene. That will always create a good performance.
Learn how to mumble.
Lasting words from Phillip. Tim, any last words?
Mumble.
Phil, thanks so much for doing this.
We're all mic'd. We're all mic'd. We don't have to talk loud because we're mic'd. What do you mean we're mic'd? Last story. You ready?
Okay.
Go for it.
Talking about that because everybody does that.
Talking like this.
I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you so slow you're not going to like it at all. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm a helicopter pilot, and I'm driving David Hasselhoff in my chopper in a film called Gridlock. Now, we're in the chopper. Okay, let's go. Come on, Dave, you want to go through the line? Sure. We're sitting in the chopper. I'm in the front. He's in the back. Looks like we're going to have a little problem. I can't make it over the... Why are you talking so loud? I said, we're in a chopper, man. Yeah, but we're mic'd. I said, we're in the chopper. He says, okay, whatever. Well, we're not going to so-and-so, I'm not going to be able to get us down anywhere. Well, why don't you take us down over there? Well, I don't know if I can put it down over there. I think you're going to have to come up with another idea. Okay, I tell you what. So it went on like this. So now the director comes over to the chopper. And he goes, let's go through the lines. I said, okay. Well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to put it down. Well, why don't you put it? Oh, Dave, you're not going to do the lines like that, are you? We're in a chopper. And I turn around and I just went like this from the front seat. And he goes, fuck off. Like this. And we start laughing. And I just went like this.
That's Phillip patting himself on the back.
No, that was the chopper noise going, you better talk above this, buddy. Mic or no mic, right?
Good for you.
And hey, that is a commitment to a character choice that makes sense in the scene. So bravo. So I want to say, Phillip, thank you so much for joining us today. I wish we had more time because we barely touched on your career. There's so many more things we could talk about. So we'd love to have you back sometime.
Yeah.
Anytime.
I want to say a big thank you to Tim McClarty, our producer from RadioRadio.com.
Radio.
Thank you very much for being here. Big thank you to The Actors Place, the co-production of this podcast. You can find out more information about our virtual acting gyms. Join us anytime, anywhere around the world at theactorsplace.org. You might see Tim there. You'll definitely see me there. And maybe we can convince Phillip to drop in once in a while too. So thank you all very much, everyone. You lazy, lazy actors. We will see you all next time.
Yeah, you got us pegged all right.